Welcome, Megan. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books.
Hi, Zibby. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, yay. Your work, Mobile Home. Can you please tell listeners what this is about and what inspired you to write it?
So, Mobile Home is a memoir and essays about how I moved 17 different times across 4 continents when I was growing up. And it really explores how our homes and our places shape who we are. So the types of homes that I lived in really spanned the gamut. At one point, I was living in a very posh flat in London, in Kensington. And I also lived in several different really normal suburban houses in California and Texas. So your McMansions and your ranch houses, that sort of thing. But I also lived in 3 trailers. One was located in Saudi Arabia, one was in a jungle in Colombia, and the first one was in Alaska, not too far from the Arctic Circle. So because of all this moving and yeah. So anyway, so moving all the time, it gave me a different relationship with place, I think, than probably most kids
I
tend to
would say
have.
so. I mean, how could it not?
Yeah.
That's a perspective that child or adult, most people have not been able to have. I mean, that is a huge geographic and structural variety that you have there. So, wow. Um,
Yes.
so there are
Yes.
like so many things to tease out. Like one is the effect of frequent moving, and one is the actual environments into which you moved. So break it down for me a little bit. When you were moving so much,
Uh-huh.
what do you think that did to you as like personality and all the rest of it? And then we can go to like what those places were like.
Right. Yeah, I do think on the positive side, I think it gave me a sense of ease with cultures across the world, a real curiosity, and yeah, just a desire to learn more about the world. But socially, as a kid, I think it was actually really difficult. And this was something, it's funny, I didn't really see it until I became a mother myself. I had always sort of believed that my childhood was, this great adventure, and it was in a lot of ways. But I don't think I ever really had the perspective of what, like, a child who's growing up actually needs from their home, which is a sense of rootedness and really structure. I think, kids, if you've ever, of course, taken a child on vacation somewhere, if you're in Paris, you want to see the Eiffel Tower and they want to get ice cream. Their perspective on a place is just completely different from what, any adult would have.
And that is why I
So
haven't taken my kids to Paris.
exactly. It's a little bit wasted until
Yes,
they're at a
wasted
certain
on the
point,
youth.
maybe.
Okay.
Totally. So yeah, so that was something that, again, when I had my son, I started to see just this huge difference. I would think about, when I was in kindergarten and I was living in a motel for a while, and then I was living in a hotel in London, and then I was living in Saudi Arabia, and it was all within about a year. Meanwhile, he was going to a very, sort of normal public school in our city, and just had a completely different life than I did. And so just the chasm between these 2 experiences really started to fascinate me. And I started writing these essays. I would say he was about 7 or 8. And I started exploring, the differences that we were having.
And how old is he now?
He's 13.
Wow, I bet he's glad you're not up and moving all the time.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, he loves his home. He does. Yeah, and it's worked out. So we do travel as much as we can, but yeah, I think being in one place for our family at least has really been the right thing.
So do you feel like itching to travel all the time? Like, are you sort of nomadic now I know you discussed your nomadic childhood, but do you feel like a piece of that snuck into you? I think you said you
I
did.
do. I do. I think partially, I just think it's like my family history. Like, everyone in my family is like this. I do think there's almost a genetic part, possibly, that some people like to keep moving and some people really want to stay in one place. If I hadn't become a parent, I don't know that I would have settled down the way that I have, but we'll never know at this point. So, yeah.
Wow. And tell me about writing the essays. How did you decide how to structure like each one? And then when did you decide that they would be great together as a complete work?
Well, I love writing essays. I find the form to be incredibly freeing. And when I start a piece, I usually have some kind of question in mind. And as I'm writing, I'm really trying to find not so much an answer, but maybe more interesting questions. Because sometimes I'll come to something with, like, for example, I wrote a piece about my arachnophobia. And I, still am afraid of spiders, and I have kind of a superstition around them. I never kill them. But as I was writing the piece, I started seeing, there were actually some more interesting questions that were buried underneath sort of the surface. And so, so that was how I really come to each essay, trying to look for just more discoveries as much as I can find them. As far as the book itself, I don't know that when I first started writing the essays, I conceived it as a collection. But at a certain point, it was hard not to notice that there was a certain theme that kept coming up. And so, so then I was able to write a few pieces to kind of pull them together and give the whole thing a shape so that they would cohere, hopefully.
Wow. Like, what do you think the characteristics of being able to adapt like that? Like, what makes someone better or worse? Because like you said, you feel it's genetic. Like, I kind of like things the way they are. I would like to be more, today I'm in Saudi Arabia, tomorrow I'm, in a posh flat in London. But to be perfectly honest, I'd rather just stay in the posh flat in London if I was going to go anywhere.
But were you always that way, or because I know you have kids? I do think when you have a family, I don't.
No, I mean, I like to travel.
It really does change.
I like to travel, but I'm not like you. I like to travel recreationally a few times a year, but I'm not like, and I wish I had that sort of wanderlust. I know people like you, and I have someone in my life who loves to travel and is always off somewhere, but like, you have to have a baseline adaptability, like a baseline, like, you can drop me anywhere and I'm going to pick up. It's like my dog, like we just inherited this dog from my mother-in-law, and like anywhere we drop her, she's fine. Yeah. She just like figures out what's on that block. And I don't know how to get that or how to give that to my kids, but you have it and I want it.
Okay. Well, I think there is a lot of nature and nurture. So it's hard to suss that one out, I have to say. But I don't know. I guess, are there places that just intrigue you from afar that you've never been? I feel like, there are cultures that I'm just like, oh, I have to go there. I have to feel what it's like to be there. And I think that more than anything is what drives me, just to keep exploring and keep things fresh. And but I honestly, it's a nature nurture question. I'm not sure I can figure that one out.
Well, these days, at least travel is sort of on hold anyway. So I can table this for my, self-improvement next year. But I love your writing style. You have a really beautiful, just a really beautiful writing style that's different than others that I've read lately, and that really sort of was arresting from even the first page, the way you see the world and your vocabulary, and just, I don't know, the way you piece it all together. It's a really
thank you. That's
nice
so kind.
style. Tell me about your writing background, and what classes you may have taken, or when you decided that, I know you realized that essays are your preferred medium, but when did that all happen? And take me back.
Such a good question. So I studied poetry early. I got my MFA in poetry from NYU many years ago. And then I went into freelance journalism, and I really made a living doing that. I did some travel writing. I did a lot of book reviewing, some arts journalism. I did, author interviews, that kind of thing. And so I think that what happened for me is poetry obviously is so creative. And then the journalism, I also really enjoyed, though, because I actually enjoyed the fact checking. I liked, really just learning about a subject and almost having kind of a humility when you come to it. You think you know something, and then you research and you discover, new elements to it. And so for me, writing essays really kind of smashes these two things together, where I can be creative and bring kind of a lyrical voice sometimes to the subject, but then also kind of keep everything tethered in reality to some degree. Yeah, and so that's really my background. I have another book, which is a book of poems. Um, but this book, it really does bring together what I love to do in writing, I would say the most.
Tell me a little about your publishing journey.
My publishing journey. So for this book, I submitted it to some creative writing contests, like academic presses, that kind of thing. I sort of felt because it was a book of essays that are very literary, I probably should go the university press route. So I picked up some of the contests that just looked really interesting to me. And the presses that I know are just, class acts. And so I really focused on those. And I was so fortunate with this. The contest I ended up winning that resulted in my book being published was the first one I submitted to. And I didn't know it, of course, for many months. So I was still submitting to other contests, but I was very fortunate. So it's worked out. It's worked out beautifully.
I love that. I had somebody else on the podcast recently who won like a book prize in Connecticut that she had entered, and it just makes me think like people should be entering more contests, right?
Totally.
I don't know if people are doing that or what the hurdles are. I don't know about the cost or whatever. I don't know much about them, but it just seems like a good way to, at least motivate you to have something finished enough to send out to that as a start,
Absolutely. Oh, I know. There's nothing like a deadline. In fact, I finished actually finished the collection the day of the deadline of this contest. Believe it or not, I was sending it that day, and it was really my goal. I'm like, I'm going to get it in for this one. And it's writing creative. Oh, I don't know. I'm sticking here. Let's see. Sorry about that. So I forget what I was saying. I'm sorry. I hope you can edit this out. I just froze.
You were talking about you wrote up right until the deadline, and then writing creatively. You were writing till that contest. And...
I just having the deadline is key to finishing, because I feel like I can pick at these things for years, as I sometimes have. but it's really helpful for me to have a deadline at some point.
So since this sold, or since the contest and then it sold and all the rest, what have you been working on? Are you someone who has like 5 different essays going at once, or?
I do. Okay. I do. I actually started a new project last year. And the funny thing about it is another nonfiction, creative nonfiction type of thing. And it's funny to me because there are themes that really overlap with what's happening this year. But it's really changed the way I see the whole thing. So I'm not sure quite what to do with it. But yeah, I've got some new stuff in the works.
I am very eager.
Not that I've been writing recently, but
that's all right. No, I was going to say, I'm eager to see the output from this time. To see how it's affected literature and what comes out.
I know. I feel it's such an intense year, and I feel. I think one thing with the pandemic and then the election and just, so much to pay attention to with homeschooling with my kid. It's just been a lot, having everybody at home all the time when I'm not always used to that, to have my own writing time. So I think it's, I'm really impressed by the writers who have been getting work done because it's, been a thin time for me. But
do you have any go-to sort of sanity reclaiming measures in your day-to-day life?
I do a lot of I do a lot of walking. I have to get out. I do yoga. Kind of the physical stuff is really what helps me the most, I'd say. We've had wildfires here in California, and that's been really just, another layer of pressure on the whole system. But right now things have cleared up, so I'm able to get out again and do hikes and socially distance with friends and, that kind of thing. It's really a lifesaver, I'd say, at this point.
Yeah, I feel like, so we inherited this dog recently, and I didn't used to walk in Central Park that much. I'm in New York City.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, I'm just not somebody who like takes a walk with no destination.
Right.
I'm not like, I'm going to go for a walk. It's like, I'm going to go pick up my kid and I'm going to take the long way, maybe. Right. But now that I have this dog, I'm like constantly out and in the park, and it's a totally different perspective on the city and city life. And life in general, like getting out
Yeah.
into nature. I know this is like the most obvious thing that I'm
No,
saying, but
it's
it's
funny
like,
how we forget the obvious things all the time. I do at least. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. So are you enjoying it or
yes. I mean,
cool?
sometimes I'm like so busy that I'm like, oh
Yeah,
my
of course.
gosh, the dog hasn't gone out in like 5 hours. But yes, I enjoy it. And now, like the other day, it was pouring, and I was like, oh no, I'll just go in the rain. Like I
Gonna
have to
miss
go.
my oh
I just
good,
have now. I
yeah.
now I like need it. So that happened very
Cool.
quickly. It's only been like 3 weeks, but now I'm very used to it. Which
That's
all
great.
goes to how quickly we develop habits and all the rest.
Oh, I know.
So I see like a zillion books behind you. What kind of books do you like to read?
These days, mostly nonfiction. I read a lot of travel. I've been doing a lot of, armchair travel, just to remind myself that there is a world beyond my little town here. Yeah, and actually, this is my fiction collection. These are all novels. I have a ton of books. I used to, like I said, I used to review books for a living, and I just collect books. I adore them. So, and I love the objects. I don't read a lot on Kindle, although I do it when I travel, but I'm very old fashioned. I just love having it in my hand. And I'm also like a margin person. I write in the margins all the time. So I'm kind of hard on my books, but yeah, I love having them around.
Me too. I always like
Yeah.
to turn the pages and
Yeah.
flip and back and forth. And yeah. Plus, I find the ones I
Right.
read online, if I don't have them, I kind of forget them.
Me
Whereas
too.
if I'm always sort of reacquainting myself with the spines, they stay in my consciousness.
Yeah, it's true.
So what advice would you have for aspiring authors?
Well, for creative writers, I would say, I guess the best advice I wish I had had a long time ago is to write the pieces as if you're never going to show them to anyone. This is also one of, I think, those obvious pieces of advice that I feel like I did hear many years ago. But I would say that that's, write for yourself, write not even because you're afraid to spill the skeletons from the closet, but just because you want to write the piece. There's some subject you're fascinated with, you suspect maybe other people may not be, but go for it anyway and see what happens. And I just think having that freedom is the key to really doing creative work.
Very true. Amazing. Well, thank you, Megan. Thanks for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to
Thank
discuss
you,
mobile
Zibby.
home. Congratulations on winning the contest. Sorry for how many times we rescheduled to get here.
It's okay.
And I feel great that we can finally say we did this.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
And thanks for the conversation.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Zibby.
Okay, take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.